One of the most famous women in scientific history is, of course, Marie Curie. She was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1867, and she died in Passy, France in 1934. She had two children, both daughters, Irene and Eve, and interestingly, her daughter won a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1935. It was Marie Curie who demonstrated that radioactivity is not a property of an interaction between elements, but is actually an atomic property. She and her husband, Pierre Curie, discovered polonium, which was named for her native Poland, and then they discovered radium. They announced both elements in 1898, and isolating the very small amounts of these two new elements took them years. Marie Curie's dissertation on the isolation and identification of radium earned her the very first doctorate in science that was ever awarded to a woman in all of Europe. In the same year that she received her PhD, she also received, together with her husband, the Nobel Prize for her discovery of radium. She was not present in Stockholm to receive her Nobel Prize because she had radiation poisoning. Both she and her husband were very sick with it at that time. In 1906, Pierre Curie was hit by the proverbial carriage and died. He was hit by a horse-drawn carriage in a Paris street. This was a year after he had finally delivered his Nobel lecture. And Marie was actually fairly annoyed by the attention that got paid, because the attention paid was not so much to the science as to the romance between the scientists. She was a little peeved by that. A month after Pierre died, Marie was offered his chair at the Sorbonne, and she accepted that. And 2 years after that, she was elected a full professor and thus became the first woman to hold any chair, any professorial chair at the Sorbonne. In 1911, the French Académie des Sciences denied her admission by one vote. The perpetrator of that one vote said, "Women cannot be part of the Institute of France," quote unquote. Therefore, Marie Curie refused to have her name resubmitted for nomination and refused to allow the Academy to publish any of her work for 10 years. And at that same year, however, she was appointed director of the Marie Curie Laboratory, which was part of the Radium Institute of the University of Paris and of the Institute for Radioactivity in Warsaw, and she was awarded a second Nobel Prize. And then came World War I. During the war, Marie Curie chose to support the French war effort. She was pretty active with it. She put her prize winnings into bonds, and she fitted ambulances and portable X-ray equipment for medical purposes. She drove the ambulances to the front lines, and she established 200 permanent X-ray installations in France and Belgium. After the war, her daughter, Irene, joined her as an assistant in her laboratory. She founded the Curie Foundation in 1920 that has worked on the medical applications for radium. And she took a trip to the United States in 1921 to accept a gram of pure radium for research from U.S. scientists. And finally, in 1924, she published a biography of her husband, Pierre. Nobody knew about the effects of radiation poisoning in those days. So Marie and her daughter, Irene, both got leukemia, presumably from exposure to high levels of radioactivity. Actually, her notebooks are so radioactive to this day that no one can touch them. No one can handle them. She died in 1934 of pernicious anemia. While I can't find any patents that Marie Curie held, her work with radiation, starting with the traveling X-ray machines of World War I, continuing with her work with radiotherapy that saved many people from dying of cancer, certainly puts her into the realm of first-class woman inventors.